Fly me to the moon. You can't even say that phrase without singing it. Fly me to the moon. You can't say, fly me to the moon. It has to be, fly me to the moon. What do you say about Frank Sinatra? Starts as a son of immigrants in Hoboken, New Jersey. Has a rare gift of being able to keep a tune, convey emotion, convey passion, and works hard. They call his time frame, you have Gen X, you have Gen Z, you got baby boomers. His generation was called the greatest generation because they went through the hard times. They were born during World War I. They grew up during World War II. They sacrificed. They produced the largest generation of kids, the baby boomers. And he was emblematic of that time. Class, sophistication, cool, rock and roll before rock and roll, his integrity for the things that he stood for, his political integrity, his civil rights integrity, his support for the state of Israel, his just an amazing, amazing human being. That just, to me, he's the quintessential coolest guy that's ever been produced by American culture. No one is as cool as Frank Sinatra. His life went through music, then it went through movies, then it went through concerts, nightclub appearances, and then he gracefully went into his old age, still singing, but also knowing when to retire and knowing when to segue from the tough guy to the passionate, heartfelt man that's seen it all kind of guy. And everything I've read about him, everything I heard about him, yeah, he could be a bit of a jerk, I hear. Yeah, he could drink all night long. But if he was your friend, he was your friend. He was the guy that would loan you the money. He was the guy that would be there for you when people are shitting on you like they did to Sammy Davis Jr. I'm just overwhelmed with the idea that I was lucky enough to grow up at a time that this guy was on the planet at the same time that I was. That's what I think of Frank Sinatra. This song is one of his great ones. It's just a classic. Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, baby, kiss me. Fill my heart with song. Let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you. All right, look. He didn't write his music lyrically. He didn't even write the lyrics to the song for his daughter, Nancy. So I'm not taking anything away from him in terms of putting out his own take on music, but his delivery, the cool factor, the passion is just too much to overlook. Fill my heart with song, let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore, and other yada yada. Okay. Silly lyrics. But how do you get that ba 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 da ba da 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 out of your head? You don't. It is part of the American culture, part of the human experience. We are lucky to have been around when a cool dude like Frank Sinatra walked the earth. There's a great book by a guy named Bill Zehme, Zehme, called The Way You Wear Your Hat. Check that book out. Check out Frank Sinatra's greatest hits. He has a bunch of them that were on Columbia, and there was a bunch of them on his own record label called Reprise. Just get in your car or go to lie down in your bed with your headphones on and just let this music crash into your brain. It's one of the great experiences of life to listen to Frank Sinatra. And I love this dude. Love this dude. At any rate, checking out Frank Sinatra. Too cool for school, baby. Talk to you.
Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, baby, kiss me. I fill my heart with song. Let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you. I fill my heart with song. Let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you.